What are stamina points and techniques? They don't exist in Dungeons and Dragons. They don't exist in Pathfinder. So this is a brand new resource and a way to use that resource for marshals to give them some love. Because we have spellcasters, and yes, they have spells they can cast. Now, those spells in DC20 use mana, so they have mana points to be able to cast spells with. But what do marshals get? And while the spellcasters are bending reality and doing all this crazy stuff, launching fireballs from the sky, marshals in general, they get a bad rap for being underwhelming and all this kind of stuff. So my solution to this is to give them a resource called stamina and ways to use it called techniques, kind of like how spellcasters use mana to cast spells. If you like the sound of this idea, you could maybe port it over and homebrew it into a D&D or Pathfinder type game. Or if you really like some of the DC20 stuff and it's sounding pretty interesting to you, then stay tuned. So let's get into it. I'm the Dungeon Coach, creator of DC20, and we're diving into stamina points. How do you get them? How do you use them? How do they work? It's a brand new energy source. It's a lot more dynamic than mana point counterpart. Now, first of all, a big picture as far as resources in the game. I don't want to just be giving out resources all the time and you have a whole bunch of different things to track and it gets really confusing. There's a fine line to that because resources are a great thing to add into games. But if there's too many of them, it gets overwhelming and clunky to track and there's a bunch of erasing on paper or clicking on buttons. But what's really nice about both of these resources is since you have mana points, if lots of things from your class cost mana points, you have a unified resource. So we can actually move away from, oh, this many times per long rest as this balancing aspect, because in DC20, if you have mana points and stamina points, now whenever you have abilities you can use, they use one of your resources. So if they use that resource and it's a consistent resource, you use the cool feature you get, and instead of saying, oh, you can only do that some arbitrary number of times per long rest, now it's just tied to the resource that you already have. This has made creating the game and having different things feel so much better, and as far as playing it, there's not this arbitrary number. So what is stamina and how does it work? So mana points, everybody knows. You have a certain amount of mana, you have this, and as you cast spells, it goes down to where you run out, and then in general, you have to take a long rest to be able to get it back. Simple. So I did not want to give marshals something called stamina and it worked the exact same way. That would be boring and just a copy paste. So the dynamic way that stamina works is you start off with a much smaller pool. A mana pool at the very low early levels is going to be about 6-7 mana or so like that. And at the very beginning for stamina, it's literally 1. You have 1 stamina. Now over time this will grow to 2, 3, 4, 5, but like 6 stamina is a lot of stamina compared to like 30 or 40 mana. So it's a much smaller energy pool, but it's dynamic. And here's what I mean by that. During combat, like within the same combat, you will be gaining and losing stamina back and forth. The ebb and flow of a marshal exerting themselves, having to take some time, and then doing it again. And the most beautiful part, my favorite thing about stamina, is every single martial class has stamina, and every single martial class regains and uses stamina differently, depending on the kind of class they are and the class fantasy and the feel of that class. So for example, here's how barbarians' stamina recovers. If they get hit by a massive heavy hit or they deal a massive heavy hit, they recover stamina, really fueling them going forward. But a rogue regains stamina if they attack a target that's weakened or has a condition on them. Or if they're flanking an enemy, it feels like a rogue. Rangers, if they attack their hunter's marked target, which is a whole ability that they get, they regain stamina from attacking their prey. Warlords are commanders of the battlefield, and whenever they give people the help action, they recover stamina. I could go on, but that's the big picture. Every single class has a unique way to regain stamina that fits the way and the class fantasy of that class. And they also have unique ways to spend that stamina. Barbarians spend stamina to enter a rage. Rogues can spend stamina to perform a strike that weakens the target. Oh, and now you can maybe see it's supposed to kind of play within itself. The perfect example is a ranger has to spend stamina to use Hunter's Mark on a target, but then they can regain stamina from attacking that target. Now don't worry, there's things in place to where stamina can't create stamina to where you have some sort of infinite loop thing. And if you don't have any stamina, there's lots of default ways and multiple class ways that you can get it back to. So that's the big picture on some specific ways of how classes can regain and spend stamina, but then you have techniques. And then the mirror here is mana points and stamina points are spellcasters and marshals. Spellcasters spend mana to cast spells, and marshals spend stamina points to use techniques. This lets us play into that class fantasy and actually give marshals big epic things they can do. Techniques are heroic feats of strength or extreme displays of power within your martial capacity. This would be a ranger like Legolas firing a bunch of arrows back to back to back to back. A barbarian grabbing somebody and throwing them extremely far. A monk sprinting across the battlefield and leaping farther than they ever have before to strike someone down. At higher levels, this could also turn into something like a barbarian slamming the ground and there being some sort of crater. You can get as heroic as you want with this, but techniques cost stamina, and that's a shared resource. So it's all now you're seeing hopefully the balance of, I don't have to just say, oh, you can only do this big move once per long rest, and then you can do this thing 3 times per long rest, and then you can do this. It's not connected to long rest anymore. It's just stamina. So you have techniques, big cool stuff you can do. You have rage, you have other class features, you have lots of different things you can do with your stamina, but it's a shared resource that you gain and lose during battle. Oh, and I almost forgot, techniques, just like spells, have technique enhancements where you can spend more stamina points to be able to go even farther. So you can have a technique that normally throws somebody a certain distance or whatever, and it costs 1 stamina. But if you want to spend another stamina on it and pour more stamina into it, they can be thrown even farther. You could throw 2 people. You can throw them up into the air. You could do so many different things as you pour more and more stamina. Every technique has a little list at the bottom to enhance it and customize the way you want to use this technique. All right, now, so what does this look like? I want to stop and give you an example of what this might look like in a game. Stamina in general, outside of combat, you always have full stamina. You have your stamina is fine. You're walking around. You're not tired. Right now, I could go run and sprint. Then I'd be tired. But right now, I'm fine. And the things that you can do with stamina are all combat based, like performing techniques and raging and all these other types of things. So that also adds some uniqueness to this resource. So whenever you start a combat, you have maximum stamina. So let's say at low levels, this might look like you have 1 stamina and your first turn's going on. What are you doing? You're doing this, you're doing that, and you want to spend your stamina to do this thing. Cool. So your turn ends at level 1 and you have no stamina left. And then your second turn, you're probably going to want to do something to be able to regain stamina. Or maybe not. It is not such a core pillar of the game that you have to use stamina if you have it, and then you must regain it, and everything revolves around. No, it stays in the background and allows you to play in enhanced ways, and then you have to recharge, go back and forth. So that second turn, you might want to do something to recover your stamina, or you might want to make some other big move with whatever you want to do with your turn. But that might be kind of the flow of how things could go. So I spend the stamina, my second turn, I don't have any stamina, I do something, I figure out a way to creatively use my action points to get a stamina back. Awesome. And then the third round, I use it again. And then at higher levels, the customization opens up even more. Let's say at level 5 or something, you have 3 stamina and the combat starts, you could choose to dump it all in one big moment where you have this big, huge attack. You want to start the combat off with a bang, use a technique, pump more stamina into it. Or what if you want to spread it out between abilities? You have 3 stamina, you use 1 to enter a rage as the barbarian you are, and then you spend a stamina on a technique and pump it with 1 more to make it even bigger. Now, since you used all that stamina in the first round, your second turn and so on might not hit as hard because you blew it all right there. But another strategy of customization could be maybe every turn you spend 1 stamina, spend 1 stamina, spend 1 stamina to be efficient across the battlefield. Slowly using it and regaining it to be able to look for that window. This is the window. I can use it all now for a big finishing blow on the enemy, or the enemy's vulnerable or weak, or you did some other combo move and somebody's setting you up. Your other team in DC20, there's so many different teams and combo moves you can do to where your team comes together. Big villains here. Here we go. It's your turn. I got all my stamina. And then you throw it all down. So it's such a fun system to have marshals have a very unique, tiny, but dynamic energy source that they can use and spend on big, cool things, or class features, or talents, or a lot of other stuff. And a big step back to the big picture to give you some foreshadowing for next week's video is marshals and spellcasters. And overall in DC20, there's lots of mirrors and symmetry in the game. Marshals, spellcasters. Marshals have stamina. Spellcasters have mana. Spellcasters can cast mana, use mana to cast spells. Marshals can use stamina to use techniques. But what do spellcasters get that they can do for free with no mana? Cantrips. So spellcasters have cantrips that they can use, no mana. Doesn't matter. Maybe you're strategically trying to save your mana for kind of the same conversation we just had. You have cantrips that are mana free. You don't have to spend them. Now, in DC20, you can boost cantrips with mana to give them a little more punch, but you get the idea. Spellcasters have free cantrips. Marshals have free maneuvers. So next week's video, we're talking about maneuvers and all the different really cool stuff you can do with maneuvers. Yes, that's right. In D&D, that Battle Master, that's really cool to play because they can perform all these trip attacks and shove attacks and all these lunges and all this stuff. Yeah, every single martial class gets that in DC20 to be able to kind of customize their attacks and do some extra flair and moves instead of just, I attack, and then I attack again. Stay tuned for that one, and stay tuned for some extra live streams that I'll be doing. I am going to be world building and launching my campaign setting for DC20. The campaign that I'm going to be running at my table of DC20. My players just killed Strahd, so I am starting a brand new homebrew 100% DC20 campaign setting in world, the whole thing. I'm going to be doing live streams during the week on top of the live streams I already do every week on Tuesday nights. There's going to be even more content coming out for that, so stay tuned for that. And speaking of world building, if you're interested in DC20 and all this kind of stuff, we have tons of videos already released out there. I have these live streams. You can come and check it out, see what's going on. And if you really want to pick up a copy for yourself to get the early alpha release, you can pick up the alpha release, get your hands on it now. Or if you are super patient and you can wait that long, you can wait for the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is going to be launching in the middle of the year. But until then, there's a link down in the description. And this link is a shout out to Bob World Builder. He and I played in a one-shot of DC20 together along with some other YouTubers. I'll put that link down in the description. But this link down in the bottom to pick up a copy of DC20 Alpha not only supports the alpha and its development on towards the Kickstarter and all the full launch of the game, but it's also going to be an affiliate to Bob World Builder. Super great guy, big friend of the channel. I'm putting his affiliate link down there so he gets a little cut from any sort of the sales from that, because I'm trying to give back to all DC20 creators that are spreading the love of this game and helping out the community. So until next time, stay creative, think outside the box. Peace.